So people can hear me. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Sensei's Corner. I have one of my favorite people in this industry on the live right now, Shiv. How are you?
Good. I'm adjusting my camera. That's why you see all this movement.
You
How
know,
are
it's
you?
Friday. It's Friday. I'm not stressing it. Like, I'm
Happy Friday,
literally,
everybody.
yeah, it's Friday. So thank you so much for joining us. We are super excited about today's conversation, actually. But we're going to take it like chill because it's Friday, usually on Fridays, we try not to work as hard, but it happens to be the busiest day of all the days, right? Fridays and Wednesday are like cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, usually for some reasons.
Yeah,
But
I usually have a goal of like, okay, maybe at 3 o'clock, I'm gonna
mhm,
open a beer. I'm gonna crack a beer open because it's gonna feel like things are slowing down,
yeah,
and it never goes that way. So
no,
it's all
never.
right.
Yeah, it's all good. Really good. We're gonna make this conversation nice and short and sweet for you, so you can meet your 3 p.m. goal. But everyone that's joining, Shiv is just amazing. Plain simple. Put it because he is a big believer in self-development, continuous education, continuous training, which are things that are very, very important to my heart, which is also one of the reasons why we're going live all week and sometime next week about on this topic. So, Shiv, how about you just briefly introduce yourself for those who may not know, which is also a small percentage, I'm sure, what you do and what is U of Digital all about?
Yeah, for sure. So we at U of Digital. So I'm the founder of U of Digital. We launched it about 3.5 years ago. And our mission statement is to make digital marketing a better industry through credible, simplified, and applicable education, right? Full stop. That's what we focus on. I think our space is confusing. It moves fast. It's evolving all the time. And
Yeah.
frankly, I think there's a lot of uh, intended over complexity in our space, right? I think people use jargon a little too much on purpose sometimes, almost as a way to like prop themselves up or prop their
Yeah.
own solutions or products up. And I think that has created this like kind of mass confusion in our space all the time, right? So I believe that we need to be going the opposite direction. And so it's kind of our mission as U of Digital to bring some clarity and simplicity to our ecosystem.
Yeah, and I love that. I love that because like we like to be so complex and complicated for no darn reason in this industry. Like we're like
Totally.
acronyms is sexy to us for some reason. Like I'll give
Yeah.
one example. Clock. Let's keep it there. And then Microsoft, I had John Lee
Yeah, I
from
saw
and he said they came up with parakeet. And I was like, I asked him, "Does parakeet stands for something?" He said, yes, but don't ask me. I'll send you an article. And it cracked me up.
him.
Like, oh, this is crazy. But I think it's a great segue into this conversation. But before we get into this conversation, for those who are just joining in Clubhouse style, let me reintroduce the guest is Shiv. He is a mastermind, justabomb.com, founder of U of Digital, and I am Ellen Parker, your programmatic sensei, host of the Programmatic Digest podcast, and also chief programmatic sensei of Ellen Parker Consulting LLC. So in today's conversation, I really wanted to talk to Shiv about some candid questions that I guess I had, because I don't think we are very good as an industry to prioritize self-development at an individual level, and especially on the media buyers and ad up side, right? Like that's my background is 100% buy side and agency side. And we've seen teams, media traders, media buyers, ad ops, even some account executive teams just be bypassed by sales team to be sent to something like a conference. Obviously, in the last year, it's different because everything went virtual, or maybe it isn't. I don't know. What do you think? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think
Is it false or true, basically?
just what's happening in the last year and how it's changing.
Do you see that sales have been prioritized over more like on a media activation side to be sent to paid training such as conferences or even like even like an IAB membership or, IAB
Yeah.
certification, which are costly, things like that. And this is
Yeah,
just
I think,
an example, IAB.
yeah, I mean, my experience from the buy side is that I don't believe that the buy side puts enough into this. I will say the buy side, it feels like maybe puts a little bit more into this than the sell side, but I do think like, if you're a media buyer at an agency or if you're a big client, I think the expectation is that you get education from your partners, right? Which basically is, oh, hey, Google, come in and teach us about your search products and your new programmatic thing, or Facebook, come in, Amazon, come in, and while I think that's okay, you always are getting a very biased perspective, right? You're always getting the Kool-Aid from your partners. And so it's hard to actually figure out what's real and what's not, right? What's true and what's not. And that's another big gap in our ecosystem that I feel like we address because, whether either side of the ecosystem, every kind of like piece of education that you get or knowledge that you get about the technology that exists out there and the data that exists out there, it's usually biased. And that's true for the trades as well. You get that from the trades as well, right? A lot of opinion pieces, slants. And so like we want to come in and fill that green space, that kind of gap in the space of just where's the objective, give it to me straight, simple education. And, sorry, I'm not necessarily answering your question directly, but I think the buy side in particular struggles with this because they feel like, oh, we'll just get it for free from our partners. And you're not really getting the whole story.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, because I've attended a few conferences and the experience gained just by attending a conference. It wasn't no direct campaign best optimization, but just being part of the energy in the room, understanding different perspective, actually visually and almost like it's almost palpable, right? Being in the room where you have other people that are in the industry, especially like for small to medium-sized agencies, like maybe in the New York and at the larger cities, this happens more often. But like when I was in Virginia Beach, it was only a handful of agencies that created this type of network where it was a free resource, right? And of course you have the AMA, the marketing association around the city, but it's not very programmatic focused if you think about it. Even when it's programmatic focused, the audience is geared towards more like of an intro level into the programmatic style. So I know you focus, and do you see this happening also because you've worked with not only the U.S. borders, like it's not only U.S. companies, it's across the world almost. So do you feel like it's common, like in France or England or Ireland, whichever you've provided training services before? Do you think that you still have to not defend but encourage a certain training to happen?
I think the training culture in Europe is a little bit stronger than the US, frankly. I also think that's true for APAC. I think it's a little bit stronger over there. That being said, I think our industry as a whole is weak, and if I was to kind of explain it simply, we do invest a lot in training. I don't want to give off the wrong impression. I think our industry does care and invest in training. I think the issue with our investment in training is that we are very focused on usually like a couple things. First and foremost, we're always focused on internal training, right? It's always about how do our systems work? How do our products work? What should our positioning be, right? And those things are great. You have to do that. That's absolutely necessary because you can't have a sales team or, a group of people that are going out and misrepresenting, your products or your company or your services. 100%, right? But what we're missing the boat on is what's happening outside our four walls, right? And in a super fragmented space where there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of companies that all sound kind of the same, that are saying kind of the same types of things, you have to kind of go to market and be able to differentiate by having a command of the domain, right? And what's happening in the ecosystem and be able to talk that talk. And that's the training that we're missing. And I think too many times, all the executives get in a room and they look around at each other and they're like, well, everybody knows what's going on with Flock, right? Like we're all good, right? And everybody knows what Unified ID is, right? We're all good there. And I think like there's like this consensual hallucination. Sorry, I'm stealing a term from from Scott Galloway there. But there's like a conceptual hallucination of just like, oh yeah, we all know this stuff, but really nobody knows it, right? Like nobody gets it. So yeah, that's I think the big gap.
Yeah. I think we like to flex in the industry, that's for sure. And I like what you said about, I think that's pretty interesting. So I just had a question and I forgot about it. So we do invest in training, more likely internal and to the benefit of either the agency and the company, recapping high level what you just said, versus just sharing. And actually, I'm in a couple actually entrepreneurship mastermind, and every single one of them are always very focused on content creation, right? And they all say, you know, you have to continue educating yourself, not only for how to make more money, but how to become a better human being, because then that will translate into, it like naturally translate into your work. And so that has been the goal for the last 6 months. Like, how do I prioritize me as a better human so that I can actually give more value, you know? And then it's worked really well in terms of referrals, since we like to talk about the dollar number. But they all say that if you think you're giving away too much, that means you don't know enough. Like, it doesn't matter how long you've been working in the industry. Like, if you think you are giving away too much information or too much free value, right? You must not know enough. Because they all say, like, how many times you've attended a webinar and then actually listened to the content and applied that content right away? Like, how many times? There's not a lot. There's a really small percentage of people that execute once they know the knowledge. So there's always going to be a need to help execute and a need to help clarify the vision. And it goes along with our topics today in terms of training and educating, right? It's all about that. So for those who are just joining us in Clubhouse fashion, welcome. Thank you for joining us. This is really a quick conversation with Shiv, who is the founder of You of Digital. We're talking about the importance of training, self-development, and educating your team ongoing and on a continuous level versus just a one-time thing. And really quickly about myself, I'm Ellen Parker. I am a podcaster, host of the Programmatic Digest podcast, but I'm also the founder and chief programmatic sensei of Ellen Parker Consulting. So I just wanted to let you guys know that I'm looking for 2 to 3 agency partners, y'all, that are looking to learn and master programmatic media, to sign up before next Friday, so a week from now. So the criteria are very simple. You're a growing agency that's ready to add maybe programmatic media into your business mix, or already have something started, but you don't know exactly. You need somebody like Shiv to come by, or you're not converting, or you want an expert advice on anything from campaign setup to audience targeting to how to partner with an AdTech. So let me know if you're interested in finding more information. The keyword is convert, and optimize. And then I'll be happy to send you more information. And of course, Shiv has had so much experience in terms of training as well. And he's an absolute resource for you and your team and anybody listening. So with that being said, let's talk about, so I did a poll I'm doing a poll on Instagram, on Twitter, and on LinkedIn. I'm not tweaking the questions per se. And on Twitter particularly, I asked how often do you invest in training or spend time training? And I think one of the comments was I think I'm quoting, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I think I saw you commented too, but I think the comments went along, if you're investing in training too much, or you're training too much, or you're training your competition, or you're investing in your competition, something like that.
So I think what that person was referring to, actually. So first of all, shout out to the Federated Learning of Corn Dogs. Very awesome Twitter handle for the AdTech space. You should follow that person. Very smart person. So anyways, that person responded to your question or your tweet about the importance of learning and education by saying, hey, training and education are somewhat nominal, right, if the compensation is not there. So he wasn't talking about competition, or she was not talking about competition. They were talking about compensation. And so they were saying, hey, compensation matters way more than training and education. And actually, if you dig into this a little bit, right, I think it's a great point, right? Which is more important, in things like employee retention, employee satisfaction. If you dig into a little bit, if compensation is relatively similar, right, even if it's a bit different, 5, 10, 15% different, people are way more happier at organizations that clearly care about them, right? That clearly value them, right? And one of the biggest ways to demonstrate that you value your people is to invest in them in other ways besides just paying them, right? And so training always comes up. And there's a bunch of articles. I shared one on Twitter from Forbes that talked about how investing in your people with training actually leads to higher employee satisfaction than just giving them a raise by a few percent or 5% or 10%. And I think that's really important to understand, right? Because if you think about the value of training, right? The idea of training, it's, hey, if I give you some more money, 4 or 5, 10%, whatever it is, it's money. You go do what you want with that money. Great, right? And maybe you can grow that money over time, whatever. But if I give you some value back in the form of training, how can you then use that to grow yourself, right? And that's not just monetarily, that's in terms of your stature, that's in terms of your self-worth, right? Your self-esteem, your confidence level, your relationships, et cetera, right? So I think that's part of that's getting to the heart of it. And also if you just think about the newer generations, right? The Gen X, no, not Gen X, sorry. The millennials, the Gen Zs, et cetera, like those folks, they're a lot less, I'd say, money driven than older generations, right? They care about more of the intangibles. And so now I think more than ever, investing in your people, training your people is a great retention and satisfaction tool.
Yeah. I literally, every single article I pulled up this week had that, like employee retention increase, training them, investing in their self-development, like every single article. And I think it's really cool what you said. And it made me think about what I think is just a common quote that they use, like, teach a man how to fish and see him something succeed or whatever.
But I'm terrible at idioms. I can't help you.
But I like to add, like, you need to teach the man how to fish and also give him the fishing pole so he can continue going. Like, you can't just train the man how to fish and be like, all right, cool, peace, and he's in the middle of the ocean and you don't know what to do. Or of an island, for example. So I think that's how I see training. Like, we're going to teach you initially as you're onboarding the skill set. Because even if you're highly skilled, you still have some level of training, right? You have to see how things are going in the agency or the corporation you're working for. So teach him how to fish, but also give him the fishing rod so that they can continue implementing. And that's what ongoing training and ongoing self-development is all about. And sometimes compensation is cool. 99% of the time. But just like what you said, that's why they said that a college degree stays, but the job comes and go, because that knowledge is what you acquired. You invested in it. Absolutely, you need to invest in it. But that knowledge stays. So I think that's an excellent way into closing this whole conversation. So my last question, it would be like, what would be a good advice or recommendation for any agency listening, any individual listening that, dang, I'm working for this agency, but every time I wanted to attend a training, do this course on Udemy, reach out to U of Digital, like the proposal of training was declined, or whichever is the proper term here. What can they do to move forward and continue training?
Yeah, I think that's tough, right? I think these decisions, unfortunately, start at the top, and the people at the top have to believe in the value of it. I think, the more people that can bring this up and talk about it with their leadership, with their direct managers, about the importance of it, the more that will kind of bubble up and leaders will recognize the value of it and the importance of it. So I guess, keep fighting the fight, bring it to people's attention. I think, if you start treating it, and not just this, I mean, this is true for anything that adds value to somebody's career, right? Don't treat all of those things like you're asking for a raise, right? How would you ask for a raise? You'd put together a business case. You'd be really thoughtful about it. You'd explain why. So when you need training or when you want, let's say, a different role, or when you want some more resources, more support, whatever you want in order to do your job more successfully, treat it like you would treat asking for a raise, right? Be thoughtful about it. Make a solid kind of quantitative case about it, or a qualitative case about it. And I think people, it's almost impossible not to pay attention and listen to somebody that comes forth with conviction and with logic, right? So I'd say just keep fighting the good fight.
I mean, that's a great advice there. Come at it as it you're looking at an increase in salary, or like a raise or a promotion. I think that's a great way to put things in perspective. And I know I said that was the last question, but I just thought about one last question. So I know you're another Sensei, and you continue training others, your clients. So how do you keep yourself trained, or how do you keep your team trained? Because I know you have a bomb network of other experts. So how do you encourage training internally, and how do you even keep yourself trained?
Yeah, I think, I learned this early on when I started this company, which is the best way to learn something is to teach it. And it's not like, we don't always have the luxury of time of just like sitting down and pouring through text and content and learning, right? But no one has time, right? But when we have the responsibility, right, to teach something, then we have to take that extremely seriously, right? Because we show up as authorities, as credible people that are trying to impart some kind of knowledge on somebody, and you can't do that until you feel very confident you have ownership of that subject, right? So we're almost kind of forced into it, Ellen, right? Like we don't really have a choice. It's our job to know this stuff really, really well, because we have to teach it. And so, for those of you out there that are doing other jobs that are not just teaching all the time, how do you stay up? I think push yourself to read, right? Push yourself to carve out some time all the time to kind of like listen about what's going on in the space. I think our industry is really bad at listening, right? People talk a lot and they don't listen enough. And so just listen to other people when they talk. Don't interrupt them. We have a problem with that too. I have a problem with that. But long story short, like, make the time for it, right? Make the time for your own self-growth and self-development, whether that be putting some time on the calendar, making sure you spend a few minutes every morning to read a newsletter, or whatever it may be. Like, give yourself that space.
Oh man, that's amazing and a great way to just drop the mic and end this. And I know you're going to try to get log off at 3 p.m. So we're going to keep this conversation nice and sweet and short. So thank you everybody that showed up in the comments, in the live. This has been great. This is such a bomb session that I am going to use it as a podcast eventually on the Programmatic Digest podcast. So stay tuned if you, for anyone, I guess if you got to this point, you listen, but it'll be on the podcast also. So thank you so much, Shiv. I really appreciate you. As always, you've been bomb, and you bring so much value to the industry, and I cannot wait for the exciting future that's ahead of us, especially with you as like, I'm going to say like a warrior of training and development for the industry. So thank you so much for making the time.
Hey, thank you. And hey, I want to shout you out. I don't think you get enough love. So thank you for doing what you do and bringing awesome personalities to your podcast all the time. Thank you for kind of pushing the industry and pushing yourself all the time out of your comfort zone. I think you've been doing a great job of just growing yourself and your brand, and it's really admirable. So keep doing you and keep inspiring people.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I hope you have a wonderful weekend.
Yeah, you too. Thanks for having me.
Bye.